We are a community of possibilities, never content with the way things are. What is possible propels us forward. We see the possibilities by knowing where your assets are located, knowing where critical issues are unfolding, knowing where your best work is being performed. Location intelligence helps you support sustainable growth, brings a community together, and helps you explore possibilities for the future. You empower GIS intelligence to identify risks, reduce costs, share critical insights, solve problems, and work more efficiently. Together, we empower citizens to get involved, to live better lives, protect their neighborhood. These are the communities where we live, where we serve, and where we become connected. Together, we create endless possibilities. Together, we are transforming the way communities work by empowering GIS intelligence.
Hello and welcome to Cityworks' second Converge User Summit. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that video. As we get started, I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. My name is Cindy Curletti, and I am the Marketing and Event Manager here at Cityworks, and happy to be here today. It's great to see so many of you here today, and since we can't meet face to face, this is the next best thing. We are grateful we are able to create moments where we can gather and share ideas from our clients and partners. And as we continue to move forward in planning our next user summit, we'll be looking to you to share your best practices. So I think we can all agree that as we moved into 2020, that, and here's the agenda for you, that we thought it was going to be a really great year, the year 2020. And I think that we can agree that it has actually been a year of change and a few other things to go along with it. But as we move through the changes and adjust, pivot, and adapt, I believe we're all doing just that. And as I was thinking of this, this presentation today, I was thinking change is actually how we've all had to go about our lives, is just changing. And it reminded me of the saying, there is nothing permanent except change. And as each year moves on, that becomes more clear. With the impact of COVID, we quickly saw things changing here at Cityworks and around the world. And how we stay in touch with each of you, our partners, and our new contacts. So we pivoted and we changed and adapted to make sure we could remain in touch and find ways to keep the Cityworks community in touch. So this is how the Converge idea launched. It launched into an idea and then a reality. A simple conversation with Bradley Chapman. He's one of our CSMs, our customer success managers. And he wanted to keep the regional user groups going. And so we decided that it had to go virtual, and this is what it turned into. And so I've got a question for you. I've got to take my glasses off to get this to come up. It's actually a poll. What is the biggest change during the COVID lockdown that has impacted your organization, you or your organization? And you can answer as many answers as you want. Actually, you can answer them all. So yeah, it looks like the majority is we really can work from home and be productive and not being able to interact in person. And I have to agree. I think those two are definitely fitting. I've got a couple of housekeeping items I need to go over. The first is we will be recording this and we will be sending this out to you at the end. Probably see it next week sometime. And this session will last about 2.5 hours. If you have any questions, we will address those after each presentation. In your control panel at the bottom, it says chat. Please put your questions there. If you're having trouble with sound, please use the number that was in the email, the reminder to call in. And this is our safe harbor slide. This is a quick disclaimer that the information provided here is intended for information purposes only and may not be incorporated into any contract. So thank you for joining us, and do not hesitate to reach out if we can help your teams, your organization. So we have a full slate today. This first group. I'm excited to get this going here. Our first presenter is Scott Burrell. He is from Park City, Utah, so just up the mountain from us here, just east of us. And he is a GIS programmer analyst, and he will be speaking with us about how Park City Public Utilities is using vertical assets in conjunction with Cityworks to help manage and maintain the many assets across Park City's network. With that, Scott, let me turn the time over to you.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Scott Burrell. Thank you very much for that introduction. Today, I'm going to be talking about vertical assets, how Park City established our vertical asset program, and how we are using them with Cityworks. Okay, really quick, for those of you who aren't familiar with Park City, we're a small resort town located in the Wasatch Mountain Range. We're about 45 minutes away from Salt Lake City, Utah, and we have lots of ski resorts and mountain bike trails in town, lots of fun stuff. As a water utility, we have several challenges, some of them which include we have a population of about 8,000 people with a huge surge in water demand during the winter. Being located in the mountains, we have a couple thousand vertical feet between our highest and lowest points in our service area. And some of those other items just kind of demonstrate that although we are a small municipality, we have a fairly complex water system. For a little background on our GIS and Cityworks programs, we have a pretty solid GIS program when it comes to our horizontal assets or horizontal data, which includes standard GIS data such as points, lines, and polygons, which represent things like pipelines, meters, hydrants, things like that. But when it comes to our water facilities, specifically our treatment plants, we've had some major problems. Our pump stations, as you can see up here, have been populated with horizontal data. And starting out our Cityworks program, everything, all the work orders and inspections were based off of those features. However, as you can see with our treatment plants, our GIS capability just hit a total wall and we are unable to inventory anything. And we have 2 treatment plants and we're building a 3rd. So this is a pretty big issue. Here is one of our rooms in our treatment plants. And as you can see, there are pipes going everywhere in every direction. There's assets just crammed together and stacked all on top of each other. There's so much going on. If you tried to draw these assets out like our pump stations, it wouldn't really be legible or would be really difficult to navigate in something like Cityworks or ArcMap. Here's another room showing a membrane rack, actually 4 membrane racks, and they have loads of assets just all on top of each other. Some of them are the size of like a deck of cards, and so it would be really hard to represent them as like a point layer. So long story short, we had absolutely no assets of our treatment plants inventoried in GIS, which means we couldn't do any work activity or maintenance work orders or inspections. So to mitigate this, a couple of years ago, we decided to launch our vertical asset program, not just to inventory our assets, but also organize them in a meaningful way, and to enable us to be able to do work orders and inspections and things like that on these very important assets. We decided to do this entirely in-house using our own resources, which essentially means me and a handful of other people were responsible for launching this program. A lot of you might already know what vertical assets are, but just a quick recap. Vertical assets are assets comprised of multiple components, or they are components themselves. They are typically inside complex facilities and sometimes referred to as above ground assets. They are often stacked directly on top of each other or configured in such a way that makes them not easily represented with your standard GIS data or on a map. These assets are records and object tables, or tables in a database, with relationships to other tables, groups of tables, or features in some form of a database structure. And although these vertical assets lend themselves to very complex facilities, they can also help represent much simpler data, as you'll see at the end of the presentation. To start things off, to start this program off, we already had a water facilities polygon layer, which you can see here. All we needed to do was divide the treatment plants into different polygons, and we split them up by the actual rooms in these plants. The next step was deciding which assets we wanted to capture, what we wanted to capture. So we created about 30 object tables to represent everything that we wanted to capture. We grouped those object tables, which you can see they're the little red tables in the bottom. We grouped them into systems, such as, for example, all of the pumping tables would go in the pumping system, the HVAC tables in the HVAC system, et cetera. And once we had all that established, we created this database structure, which is hierarchical, starting at the water facilities polygon layer up top, which is then related to the system level, or the system tables, which they're tables themselves, but they don't have any assets. They just help group the object tables, which is the third level. And this level is where all of the assets live, or all the records and assets are. So this is how Park City set up our structure. It's really customizable and you can configure it any way you want. We originally started with 4 layers, but after a while, with a process layer, but after a while, we kind of determined that our system wasn't necessarily complex enough to justify that extra layer. So we changed it to 3 and it worked much better for us. Unfortunately, I can't get into exactly how I set this up or the details about it, but I'm more than happy to share some more information. So please reach out to me after this, and I'm happy to send some more stuff if anyone's interested. Okay, so we set up our database structure. We started collecting all of our assets through collector using this database structure. I don't have any pictures, but we did use this structure in collector as well. And we configured everything in Cityworks. Some big steps, but I'm kind of glossing over. But let's jump into it. How do our vertical assets and the vertical asset structure look in Cityworks? As you can see, here's one of our treatment plants, and I've selected one of the rooms highlighted in red there. When you expand it in Cityworks, this little window pops up, and highlighted right there, you can see the chemical room. Here are the oh, the picture's off, but the systems are below. And if you wanted to expand a system, you click that little box, and highlighted in yellow right there are the object tables, and below are the assets that are associated or related to that chemical room. So what's really, oh, and this whole thing, this little structure is called a asset hierarchy. And what's really more impressive here is the assets that aren't being shown. In our system, we have about 3,000 vertical assets collected, and it's just it's awesome that we can instantly sort through all this stuff to find the exact assets we're looking for. And it's so much faster than trying to search through that asset, the asset search tab in Cityworks. So this is a really efficient way to do this. All right. So here is one of our pump stations represented traditionally with the horizontal data, and there are about 20 or so assets in there. Here is that same pump station with all of these system tables and object tables expanded. as you can see, the vertical assets allowed us to capture way more assets than we did with the traditional horizontal assets. And we have about 100 for this pump station. And all of the official kind of inventory and all the Cityworks stuff now for anything inside of a water facility is now pointed at these vertical assets. This is also a good demonstration of why we set the database structure up the way we did. If we didn't have that intermediate systems level, the drop-down, the asset hierarchy would look something like this. And there's just a lot to look at and a lot to sort through. So we determined that kind of having that systems level really made things much more organized and easier to sort through to find the assets. All right, so a quick recap. In the past, to create work orders, we would select these features in the pump stations to create work orders and inspections off of and stuff. But now we no longer do that. Instead, we select the polygon itself and then navigate through the asset hierarchy to find the assets that we are looking for to create work orders and things off of. So this is how our vertical assets look in Cityworks. Now we're going to briefly talk about how we're using Cityworks with vertical assets in our department. Starting with the distribution group, they've been using Cityworks the best, and they are our best group of Cityworks users in our department, primarily because they started a long time ago when we had Cityworks running off horizontal assets. Here are a list of work activities they do. They work with meters, or they work with motors, valves. They do daily rounds, inspection on SCADA equipment, and all sorts of stuff for our 21 pump stations. Here is a quick example of a inbox for our pump and motor maintenance inspections. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, as you can see, as for a general work order, you can't tell if the asset is related to the work order, if that's a record in the table or pointing at a feature. So this really made the transition really easy for the end users when we transition to the vertical assets. All right, really quick, we're going to move on to the treatment group. They are new to Cityworks and GIS, primarily because they had no way to interact with it until we developed the vertical asset system. And because they only work inside, they're only working with vertical assets. Here is a list of the work activity that our treatment group does. And we're off to a good start, but we estimate we're only about a quarter way of the way complete with what we want to do with Cityworks. However, those first two items, the instrument calibration and verification work orders, is a huge effort, and that's a major milestone for our treatment group. It consists of about 300 very important work orders every month that we're now capturing in Cityworks. So they're doing an awesome job. Okay, just want to show everyone really quick how the vertical asset structure looks in Respond. You can see I've selected a polygon in another one of our treatment plants, and below or the system levels, which are related to it, highlighted in yellow, kind of expand below, and then the assets expand below those. So it's very similar to how it looks in the other format. Here is an example of a treatment dashboard, pretty standard. Here is another analyzer verify work order. And one thing pretty standard, but one thing I want to mention is when you open a work order with a related asset, it zooms to the polygon that it's still related to, especially in that split screen mode. So pretty cool stuff. All right, really quickly, aside from the water department, I also manage the data for our streets department. And one day, after I was working on the vertical assets for treatment, I was trying to take a break with the traffic sign data. And after a while working with it, I was kind of like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to convert this into some sort of vertical assets as well. And it's really a similar concept, but just magnitude simpler. So this is nothing necessarily new or special. but in a way, it's a type of vertical asset. And yeah, it's an incredibly simple but yet effective form of vertical assets outside of a complex water facility. So where is Park City going with vertical assets? Aside from furthering developing our Cityworks and things like that for the various groups we have, we are also in the process of building yet another water treatment plant, which, as you can see, is more complex and intricate than the last ones. And so we are going to need to create new object tables and new systems or groups of tables to be able to capture all that new information for the new treatment plant. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time. Really happy to be here to talk about what Park City is doing. Does anyone have any questions? Hey, Cindy, you might be muted.
Thank you. We do have a few questions. Thank you for that presentation. That was awesome. Here's one. Because we're running a little bit behind, I'm going to just go over one question here. As a small utility doing all of this on your own, how did you go about collecting all of your assets for your treatment plant?
Yeah, that's a great question. We really took two approaches. The first, for our pump stations, we kind of had just a massive effort and wave of people trying to do this. So there'd be about 15 of us, and we would go to each pump station, and we would just go through every single asset. And we got it done in about 4 months, but it did take a lot of time and effort. The second kind of approach is what we did with our treatment plants, which was we really took incredibly small baby steps collecting this data. And really we let kind of the CMMS or Cityworks program kind of determine which assets we were going to collect next. So we would say, okay, we want to do the asset or the analyzer, verify and calibrate work orders. Well, we need to go out and capture every one of those assets. And I think you have to be okay, especially when you're doing with limited resources, with limited staff doing it. You need to be okay, I guess, with having a partially completed inventory. And so, yeah, there's two different approaches, and yeah.
So something you're always adding to, you can add to those
Oh,
assets.
exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I forgot to mention, like, a goal of how we proceed and capture all the assets is with the kind of the less important assets, is that when an asset is replaced or like breaks or has some sort of malfunction, we then add it into, as the operators are kind of working on it, we then add it into Cityworks. So we have been able to add quite a bit over the last couple years, but it may take us a couple more years to just add everything. So really slow. But yeah, cool.
That's awesome. Thank you for that information. Really
Okay,
great.
thank you very much, Cindy.
Thanks
Thank you,
so
everyone.
Much. Okay.
Next up, we have Rob Vandehei.
He works for the city of Escondido, and he's the director of information systems, and he will talk to us about how the city of Escondido's vision and holistic approach in managing their community.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rob Vandehei. I'm from the city of Escondido. We're located in Southern California, San Diego County area. I'm going to be talking to you about how we grew to use Cityworks as an enterprise solution. We go on the first slide here. So as the title states, think enterprise, start small is how we did it. First slide here that I want to kind of go over is our approach to solutions. Local government, we kind of came to this conclusion that local government cannot solve all problems alone. So we're constantly looking for partnerships. Anywhere we can establish these partnerships really helps us to accomplish our goals. Solutions need to be improvements for everyone involved. Sometimes that's difficult because when you're thinking enterprise, one department might take on a little bit more work to benefit 5 or 6, 7 other departments. So you really need to change the mentality of the way people think of things. They need to think of themselves as part of an enterprise and not just part of a department. And when they start changing that way of thought, they start to agree that an improvement for the organization really is an improvement for themselves. Know the big picture and how to break it into smaller pieces. That was a key component for us because once we broke the things into smaller pieces, but with the enterprise model in mind, we can start going after the easy wins and then build on those successes. So some of the things that we most frequently look for in a solution is that partnership, right? The community engagement, our customers as part of that solution. Of course, you have staff. You always want to document and outline and really dig into the efficiencies you're trying to create, the effectiveness, cost, return on investment. This next item here is really important. You really want to create a system that has the that collects data, and that data drives those decisions. It really brings on that change. It establishes the metrics of success. So we really see ourselves as our organization as part of the big picture. We need to work side by side with other entities like school districts, NGOs, community groups, using our resources to complement one another. Even within the city, no department can achieve city goals on their own. Align city goals to combine resources that take advantage of professions and skill sets. Once you buy into that, it leads to removal of siloed technologies, pursue economies of scale, technology drives workflows, data-driven decisions are everyday events, and solutions become more a holistic vision. On this slide that you're seeing right now is really kind of a list of the departments that use Cityworks. I really wanted to bring this up to kind of illustrate that this really is an enterprise solution. If you look at the number of departments using it, it really talks to that. On the left-hand side, you see more of our AMS Cityworks users, and on the right-hand side, you see more of our PLL departments. And I want to emphasize something in here is when I talk about build off success, you see on the left-hand side, down at the very bottom, storeroom, we really tried to bring in storeroom. We were using a different technology, and there was a lot of pushback. They didn't really want that change. But as we started building success and getting more and more departments within utilities and within public works onto Cityworks, next thing you know, they were asking to bring our warehouse onto storeroom. It just made sense. So you can see that as an example of how we were building on success, and something I was having a hard time, implementing a change in a certain area, then became an easy change. So on the next slide, I want to start talking about the software side of the solution of enterprise. I'm kind of looking for this next slide here. Go advance one more slide. There we go, right there. Okay, so I want to talk about the software side of our enterprise solution. The magnitude of our investment in Esri products exists because of the Cityworks integrations and vice versa. In order to meet all of our needs, we really needed to kind of expand just past the core of Cityworks and Esri. So we went on to purchase Highland On-based document management and electronic plan review. And we also added the Timmins portal. That was selected because it better needs to have a customer-facing, highly customizable portal. And that was a key part for us because we see our customers as part of that solution. And if we weren't meeting their needs, they're not going to be using the solution, and it all just kind of falls apart. So, and as we were kind of addressing a piece out of a time, we needed to configure it for the piece we're working on and then expand from there and so on and so forth, right? So having something like that was critical for us because we could customize it each step of that way. So, and then our vision for community engagement as part of our solution required us to purchase a rock solid piece. And that community engagement piece was been, just instrumental in all of our success in a lot of the areas throughout the city. So that was a huge win for us. I also want to talk a little bit about why we consider this as a success and as an enterprise solution. One of the metrics of our success is how widely is it used. And you saw from that list of the departments using it, that it's being used all across our organization. The fact that I can tell people that after Outlook, Cityworks is the next widely used software technology in our organization, that's a huge thing. We're very proud of that statement because we started off with this enterprise vision, and then we just started taking it one step at a time. And today we can actually say that. So again, we're really proud to be able to say that, because saying that brings along all of the efficiencies and how effective this is really as a platform to help us solve our problems and get our workloads done. There was a time I was knocking on doors, looking to bring departments into the vision. And now at this point, I kind of have a waiting list. I have people, looking at the data. They're looking for changes, for improvements, and they're coming knocking on the door saying, I want to make some changes based on the stuff I'm seeing. And the stuff that they're trying to measure up against their success is they want to make those changes to make that happen. So they're coming to me at this point. So now I've established this partnership that can continue to grow. And other departments who are not using Cityworks are coming to me and say, hey, how can I get on this? Because I work with these other departments. So these cross-department workflows now become something that's expected to happen within our organization. So they're looking to get on board as well. So believe me, it's hard to start. And that's why you have to go after the easy wins and then just build on that success. Cityworks and Esri can take care of a department for sure. You'll see lots of examples of that, but you should also know they can take care of your entire enterprise. The point is, start small, expand based on knowing it can cover your entire enterprise. So think in that way. It definitely will pay off. Each department is a piece of that puzzle. As you put these pieces together, the city team comes together and your return on investment increases. I think one of the reasons why it's so successful as a product is because it has an open foundation that can grow with you, creating efficiencies for your organization, and just as important, your customers. So far, we've talked about enterprise, start small, our approach to solutions, reviewed a list of departments on Cityworks, the software side of the solution. But let's talk a little bit about change, and then we'll talk about that in the next slide here. So change is difficult. We all agree with this. We all come across this, and it's something we need to address. I'm always perplexed by the roadblocks people put up and the reasons why we can't get something done, why we can't move to a new platform, why we can't look for a solution. And one of the biggest things that come across is the time is never right. This is not the right time. Can we do this next year? We're just so busy. There's all these other reasons. And I come back with these three basic things, right? Why isn't the timing to improve operations ever the right time? Why isn't the solution more important than the pain of change? Can you really afford not to meet the needs of staff, customers, and the community? And there's not really a lot of debate around that. When I bring that up, they don't know really what to say, what to reply to that. And so that kind of opens the doors of, okay, show me, prove to me how this is going to benefit, right? So, and I go through that whole process, and that's where I get the buy-in. At least I get the green light to move forward, and that's really what I'm looking for. And I'll go on to an example here is, COVID has catapulted the use of technology forward. More importantly, the willingness to accept change. It has expanded the thought of access everywhere and conducting business virtually and digitally. So we have a situation here, right? And so what I'm trying to say is take advantage of a situation. This is a situation that's here with us today, but there'll be other situations that you'll come across, and you need to look to see where you can align those situations and take advantage of it to help you with that change process. We went live with Cityworks PLL for 6 departments. I'm talking engineering, field engineering, planning, building, fire, utilities engineering. We did all this on July 1st. So right in the middle of COVID, when everything's going on, it was the right time. We were already building up towards this. We were already getting ready for it. And so it could have easily been one of those time issues, but it turned into, let's take advantage of this and let's keep moving forward. Because the idea that all of a sudden we were having a hard time with, giving them access everywhere, or having them thinking about, interacting with their customers digitally. And then it turned into, let's do this now. Right? We need this. We want this. We want to be able to access this stuff from home. We want to be able to interact with our customers wherever we're at. So, we implemented Cityworks PLL, the Timmins portal online applications and payments, Highland on-base document management and electronic plan review, all with 100% of my staff working remote, working from home. Also, our implementation vendors. Timmins, the Timmins group was working remote. Highland KMBS were working remote. All of our training happened during remote sessions. And many of the departments had staff either working in the office or remote from home. So again, take advantage of your situation and try to find a way to move forward. So on the next slide here, I think it's a good time to really start talking about success. And one of the things I really like to bring up, and this is something that happened recently, we just went live with Cityworks PLL with our building department. And we had a customer developer interacting with staff, and our staff was asking the customer, hey, please, will you bear with us? Well, we just went live with a new system. And the customer simply replied, your system is great. I can do everything from my office during COVID. And that was a big statement because they appreciated that. They felt safe doing that. They didn't have to come into City Hall and interact with our staff. Same plus, I'm gonna save 20K in printing costs. So now on top of that, we're saving them money because we're changing the way we're doing business because we now have electronic plans. And then they also talked about office hours. They don't have to worry about office hours. And that's a big thing because we can receive electronic documents, we can receive electronic plans, and they don't have to do that during office hours. They can do that in the middle of the night or whenever they happen to be working, from home, from their office, whatever. They don't have to worry about coming in and meeting us during our office hours at City Hall. So that was a big statement. So the customer felt great about it, right? The customer is part of our solution. They felt good about it, which also made staff feel good about it. So that was a success, and we're going to continue to build off of those types of success and those types of feedback that we're getting from our partner. Next, I want to talk a little bit about business license on Cityworks. So, sorry, I advanced the slide there, and I'm still back on the previous slide. There we go, sorry. So business license on Cityworks. I wanted to let you know that you can do business license on Cityworks. We went live with this about a year and a half ago, and we're able to now measure some of that success. So we used to be understaffed with lines at the counter. Now somebody at the counter is kind of a rare thing. Staffing is not an issue. We are doing more than just collecting a fee and issuing a license. And our old system, that used to be basically what it was collect a fee, issue a license, track the renewals. And the data that was collected at the time wasn't really being used. So 75% of our new business licenses and 35% of the renewals are happening online through that Timmins portal. And that's been key for us because we're able to customize that to meet our customer needs. And I think our numbers kind of support that idea. So the geo data is being used in community development, economic development, code enforcement, police, fire, public works. What I'm trying to say here is that the work that's happening in business license is benefiting a lot of different departments in a lot of different ways that wasn't even really fully, visioned or expected, but it's happening. It's allowing these departments to be more effective and be more successful in the services that they're providing. So the last bullet point here is an important one too, is data-driven decisions come from dashboards. So we're delivering that data to dashboards so people are able to see that. It's in mobile apps, workflows are increasing compliance, targeting potential business opportunities. So our economic development department is looking at the data and they're seeing what can we do? How can we improve our business community? They're using that data. And we're matching sales tax data. We're starting to do this, matching other data sets with the data we have to give us insights on the health of business in our city. So that's been a huge win for us as well. And the next slide here, we're going to continue on the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit more about success, because I think success is an important part of growing into an enterprise solution. And one of the things that we get asked a lot about is our graffiti program. So we'll have people come into our city, like say someone from HUD, and they'll want to drive around our city and look around and see what's going on. And one of the first things they always say is, we don't see any graffiti. What's going on? How are you guys taking care of graffiti? We drive through other cities and we see a lot of graffiti. And the idea is that we found a solution. And the theory is the right technologies will connect and combine to create systems working together. forming a complete solution. We initially started off with just Cityworks and Esri, and we're out there taking care of our graffiti stuff, but we weren't really gaining ground, and we were still struggling. So that was a key component, is to have that core, have that start. But until we found that partner and that community engagement piece, did it really come together, right? And that's where that rock solid piece came in, to create that community engagement. So now, right now, one of the things we're really happy about when we measure that success is graffiti was removed less than 4 hours from the time that it was reported during business hours from Monday through Saturday. So if you can picture that, somebody reporting graffiti and it gets removed that quickly, that's reinforcement of that action. And citizens and other partnerships that we have, those people who are reporting the graffiti, the fact that it's getting removed and they're getting notified, that just perpetuates success in the use of that. So again, I couldn't stress enough, we couldn't solve the graffiti problem without community engagement, reporting where it is. So a lot of people say, well, how does it really work? And I think that to sum it up, to just give you a quick little narrative of how it works, is, a citizen spots graffiti, they use our app to report it, which it generates a service request. A lot of times there's multiple service requests for the same graffiti, so we combine those and create a work order. That shows up on the Cityworks mobile app for staff out in the field. They drive from work order to work order, removing the graffiti, capture the data. The person that reports it is notified when it was cleaned up. Police use the data for gang info and arresting taggers and that sort of thing. All costs are tracked. Attorneys pursue prosecution and restitution. City collects funding based on location. Overall crime associated with graffiti is dramatically reduced, and the blight in our city is eliminated. Since then, we've kind of added online waivers to take care of private property. That allows us to go on private property and remove graffiti. That's been a successful thing, because that's just another map layer on the app for staff out in the field. They can say, oh, it's private property, but let me look on my app. There it is. We've got a waiver on file. I can go on there and just remove it. So the reason also why I want to talk about graffiti program as success, because when I talk about building on your successes and moving things forward, and one success leads to another, is this same program can be used for potholes, homeless encampments, weed abatement, trees, street and traffic lights, storm drain, and so on. So this model can be reapplied over and over and over. So when we have that conversation with different departments, and they say, well, prove it to me, and say, well, okay, let's talk about this model we're using for graffiti. It could also be applied to what you're doing, small adjustments, and we can move forward. So again, it's building off of that success. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I wanted to kind of, present to you, letting you know that enterprise solution in Cityworks is definitely a possibility. We went about it just kind of one step at a time, and we really kind of grew into this. And I wanted to let you know that you can do that also. So with that, I don't know if there's any questions.
Thanks, Rob. Actually do have one question, actually. Somebody wanted to know what your dashboarding tool is that you're using on the TV screen in the background.
So that's an Esri operational dashboard, and we have a lot of these throughout the city. We like to put these up because they're in plain view, so we want to deliver that data back to the decision makers. Because if you just collect a bunch of data and you make the decision makers go out and retrieve it, we found that to be a flawed idea. So we looked to add screens like this in different places. It could be in common areas where staff sees it all the time. It could be in a manager's office. There's lots of different places we like to post things up so that they're in our view of sight. So we don't have to go out and get that data, it's just there. And that leads to someone question, okay, that's not happening the way I thought it would happen. We're not getting the success that we think we should be getting. Let's evaluate the data some more. And that turns into an opportunity for improvement.
That's awesome. And we do have one other question. I recently saw the video highlighting your volunteer opportunities in ArcGIS Hub. Have you already, or do you plan to incorporate Cityworks and other related data into ArcGIS Hub for customers and staff?
Yeah, I think that goes back, hand in hand. So anything we do on one platform, we will need to bring over to the other. So we use the hub for our volunteer program, but there's back-end workflows that also go into Cityworks. And then data that's collected in from Cityworks can come back out through the hub and present the data that's being completed. And really kind of, it's that partnership you want to, build, but that partnership's built on information and build on success. So you want to share that data back and forth.
That's great. Okay, I think we're going to move on. Thank you so much for sharing how Escondido has been able to adapt and change and help with the successes that came from that. So
you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we've got Joel Griffin. He is going to be taking us into break. He is actually with HDR, and he'll be talking about the transformation at San Juan Water District, implementing an organization-wide GIS program. Esri's utility network enabled the GIS system to act as a true digital twin and included integration with the new Cityworks implementation. So with that, Joel, I'm going to turn the time over to you.
I'm here to talk about the San Juan Water migration into the utility network. And this involved several pieces of integration, one being the CMS, the Cityworks system that we brought in, along with the Esri utility network. And the utility network, as some of you might have heard, is a new solution from Esri to network your water system, or electric or gas. There's other ones too, but in this case, it was just the water system. And to get that to be into a system that's now used by everyone throughout the district. It's not just used by GIS analysts or certain people that just with GIS skills. It's now shared. This service is shared with everybody, including Cityworks. And so everybody's able to do any sort of maintenance and inspection reports off of those GIS features. The key component of the utility network is that it is a service-based architecture. So when you do any edits or are doing any sort of editing or anything that you're interacting with the data, you're actually doing it on a REST service, which is a lot different from the way it used to be for us in the GIS world. We used to have to deal with a native client connecting directly to SQL through ArcGIS Desktop. And once you do the utility network, what you do is you set that up through the native client, and then you publish it. And then from then on, all your analysts and the viewers are working directly on the REST service itself. So this is a sea change in how we operate in the GIS world. And this helps to get the data to the people that need it a lot quicker, instead of having previously maybe a replica database that's published out to your REST services, or maybe even just a checked out shapefile. You now can directly connect to it, and you connect all the permissions and everything through Portal for ArcGIS. So that's a few of the caveats. You have to be on Enterprise as of now. They're planning on doing some migration work into ArcGIS Online in the future, but right now it's just ArcGIS Enterprise. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the quick facts about San Juan Water District, a little bit about the story, and I'm not going to get into too many fine-grained details about the utility network. There's a ton of great videos that Esri provides, but I'll get into a little bit about the setup. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the additional things we had to do for Cityworks to make sure that everything talked nicely with the relationship classes and everything, and then talk about the conclusion and how everything all fit together. So San Juan Water District was established in 1854, been around for a while, serves the community of Grant Bay and portions of Roseville, Folsom, and Orangeville, California. As you see from the map there, just outside of Sacramento, California. They have a retail service area, consists of 17 square miles, serving about 12,000 customers, and about 200 miles of pipeline, wide-ranging diameters, due to the fact that they sell some of their water to wholesale customers downstream. So some of the other sister agencies downstream get the water from the water treatment plant that's connected to the Folsom Lake, as you see there in the map. And they have about 50 employees there. And what we did is set up an enterprise license agreement with Esri. So we now have 50 named users for the enterprise system. So anybody that wants to go in there and contribute, make edits, they're able to do that. So this is a little bit about the needs assessment that we did to start out. We wanted to identify all the other supported systems that we wanted to connect to, and also make sure that we have a system that we build that it's not just some special custom developer system that cannot be maintained in the future. We want to make sure that there's something using Esri software and some other custom widgets connecting things here and there, but mostly out of the box configurations that we could use just to customize their needs, but still using the base functionality and the base software. And we want to be able to integrate with CMMS and hydraulic model and their customer information system. So bringing all these pieces, they started in CAD, bringing that CAD environment. It's not very shareable or usable by other people. So we're bringing that into the GIS environment where it's now the center of all the information that the district needs. We also wanted to bring in the document management piece where all these hanging files and big flat files that were hanging up in the map room are now digitized and scanned and available in the web map that the field service crews can use. We want to make sure that everything in the system is secure, so everything's all within their network. It's all hosted internally. You have to have network access to see any of the data or act with anything in the system. Some of the project highlights, too fast. Some of the projects highlights included bringing in the CAD to GIS. That took about 4 months. Again, I mentioned about 200 miles of pipeline. Converting that from CAD to GIS, we did a few things at the beginning to get that set up, just for alignment purposes, bringing in the parcels from the publicly available parcels from the 2 counties that it sits on, and then line that up before we migrated it into GIS. And then we brought in the water solutions package from Esri for the water distribution to kind of start with the base schema, and I'll get into that in a second. But we did some other things, setting up the will serve applications and project tracking is something they used to do through Excel tables and access databases that were separate. People had their own versions on their own machines. I'm sure you all been through that. And we brought that all into the GIS system. So now when somebody in engineering makes a change, somebody in customer service can see that change and get that information and use it right then and there. And there's a few other things like that we did to integrate together, bringing in the customer information systems, the Tyler table. So all the customer information, like the addresses, last inspection date, the consumption for that last inspection, all brought into the GIS system. So again, the field service crews can see that in customer service as well. And that graph there on the right showing how GIS really is the center of all this information. And I consider GIS really the key component of it being a communication piece. So this is the implementation scope. I'm not going to get into everything here. The highlighted ones are really the big time consumers. So you had the migration, took a lot of time. Getting the meters and customer information location set up took a little bit of time too. Scanning all those documents took a long time. The plant and SCADA locations, that didn't take a lot of time, a lot like what Scott showed before. They had a sketch of the plant and what they wanted to do. We digitized that. I'll show that a little bit later as well. But to get all those pieces together and make sure we have the right systems within the right process areas and things like that. I think David's on the call there. He can tell you all about it as well at San Juan Water. We took some time going through that and making sure we had all the pieces put together and configured it. Once we had the draft version, configured it a little bit differently, a couple iterations, and got that set up. And then once we did all of that, we had some training classes. We went over all the GIS data, so all the field crews are very aware of everything that we had in the system. And then we're rolled out Cityworks after that. So they're already very familiar with the data that's already in the maps. And Cityworks just consumes that same data. So they're already very familiar with the data in the maps and how everything looked and felt before they even started really working with Cityworks. Get this thing to go here. All right, so setting this up, as I mentioned before, we had ArcGIS Enterprise 10.7, so you have to be on Enterprise as of now to use the utility network. We're on ArcGIS Pro, so again, this doesn't work in ArcMap. You have to go to ArcGIS Pro if you want to start using the utility network, and I highly recommend you do anyway. And once you have Pro set up, then you can use this ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool, install that, and you can download any of these utility models that you see here on the right. Again, this is just water that we're showing. There's ones for electric and gas, and there's ways to even interact your electric features with your water if you so wanted to have that modeled within your network. Then once we have all that set up, we add the utility network pieces, import the CAD features into that GIS schema for the water distribution, and then we publish the map services. What it does is creates a feature and map service. So the feature is what you give to the GIS analyst to do all the editing, and the map service is what you publish out to all the field crews. So they just see the data. They're not editing it or actually changing it in any way. And then we add rules or subnetwork configurations for any rules. That took a lot of time too. Once we loaded everything into the utility network, there's a ton of network errors because the simple things, and there wasn't rules for ARVs or BOVs in the water network. So we simply added those rules in and then did another validate, and that made the network accept it and cleaned up all those errors. And then last but not least is cleaning up the subnetwork tiers. And this is a big piece to the utility network, and the big power behind it is having these subnetworks set up. So you're able to set up like your pump zones or PRVs as your subnetwork controllers, and then you can see all the water that goes down from that location or back up to it, and everything in between. If you have an isolation event, like a reported leak or something like that, you can click on a point on the map where that location is, and then it'll automatically go out to the nearest valves and tell you which ones you need to shut off right then and there. And that network capabilities can be transferred to the web browser as well. So you can have a tool set up in your web browser that the field crews can run right then and there out on the street. And to go a little bit more into some of the benefits and functionality of the utility network, as I mentioned before, the flexibility of being a feature service. This more and more we see third-party vendors and other people that are able to connect directly to this feature service. You don't have to worry about a geodatabase connection issue or even them hitting it directly. They're just looking at a view of it from that map service, and it's a lot more flexible and easy to use for other parties now, a lot more than it used to be. And having that flexibility, you can set up your editors so they can do their edits in the field if you wanted them to. Having that productivity, being able to do that in any place on any machine is very powerful. And the quality that you get on using these rules with utility network, so you can't have a water hydrant connected to a service lateral. It has to be a certain hydrant or fire service lateral that it's connected to. Things like that are set up on the front end help your editors have a more quality product. You don't have to spend a lot of time QA, QCing, and cleaning up stuff. And there's a lot of these feature templates that are built into it, so you can have a whole valve construction set up in your editor toolbar. So with basically 2 clicks, you can add in a service main with several service valves on top of it, even a BOV or anything else that you want to add on top of it. You can create these templates. You can create a whole pump station with these templates with basically 1 click of a mouse once you get it set up. So there's a lot of those workflows that really help the functionality and benefits and productivity of all of your workers. The network modeling is, of course, the key component to the utility network, hence the name. And so, like I was mentioning, the sources, so things like your pump stations, your water treatment plant would be your sources. It establishes the connectivity, so it knows whether things are connected or not, and that will enable the tracing, of course. There's these other concepts of containment. So you have these devices, kind of what Scott was talking about, maybe any valve or a piece of equipment within a certain part of your water treatment plant, it can be part of that container. So anytime you select that process area in your map, all those things that are part of that containment are also connected and show up. So if you run a trace, you can also pick those items out. And attachment is something else that we use for mainly for items that are maybe like for electricity, they use it for poles. So things that aren't actually part of your electric network, but your transformers are attached to those poles. And so you can model that within your network without actually having to draw lines to show that relationship. And of course, the tracing, there's several out of the box, connected subnetwork, upstream, downstream isolation, shortest path traces that are set up. And there's a ton of functionality just within it's a geoprocessing tool. So you can configure that however you want it, save it, and you publish that up and it goes straight up to the web. And the 3D visualization piece is really big that we're starting to get more and more into, seeing some of those drawings that Scott had earlier of all the different pipes going within the water treatment plant, being able to visualize that. It's all built in the native structure of the utility network being a 3D feature. Then schematics is something that I've seen more and more of people using recently. It's just another way of seeing your data and simplifying it. Instead of seeing every single valve that's on a main line, you maybe just want to show a diagram of all the PRBs and all the hydrants or other small things that make up your network that you want to show, and you can configure those schematics to display and be used by your engineering group and print them out if you want or publish them and use that however you see fit. So there's a ton of benefits, and I'm not going to have enough time to go through everything here. I do recommend, if you guys are interested, going to some of those Esri videos to see how some of the other functionality live and direct. I'll get into a little bit more here, but it's really interesting to use. And yes, there is a learning curve to get started, but once you get going, you get used to it. It's just like most other GIS features you're used to working with, points, lines, and polygons. They have some rules and some intelligence behind them, but they're not hard once you get used to it. So here's what it looks like when you open up Pro. This is the water distribution project for Naperville. So this is some demo data that we use. And you see here the network structure there on the left. I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to see, but what I'm trying to show is there's really only 9 different layers that are part of the utility network here. And that's huge because you don't have to manage 50 different layers for all the different pieces of your water network. It's all consolidated within 9 layers. So this makes it a lot faster for web mapping, for just doing panning, zooming, and desktop, and being able to query on inspections for your entire water device feature class instead of having to go one by one. And the other thing I have highlighted here is the UN data set, and that's what highlights all the errors and things like that you see when you start validating your network. That helps you determine, okay, maybe I don't have a rule for the ARVs, and you'll see a big red line or something show up. And so you just go in and add the rule, go back up to your network topology, validate at the top left, validate it, and then it checks off and the error is gone. And then once you have that set up, then you can start plugging your subnetworks, and you have the subnetwork there at the top right. And then there you can find your subnetwork. So this would be your pressure zones, and you can do a trace on that immediately. So everything connected would be highlighted within that certain pressure zone. And then you can modify that controller. So you can add in, if you got a new PRV that was installed, you can add that in as part of that subnetwork. So all that's managed right there within Pro. And a kind of key component, and what you see here on the map, is these subnetworks are displayed as this separate subnetwork feature class. And this is something that you never edit. It's one simple line, one row in the database. And it has all this information as far as all the service connections, all the hydrants that are part of that subnetwork. So you can manage that just directly through the geoprocessing tools and not have to edit it one bit. It's automatically processed when you run the update subnetwork. So I'll go on next to one of the key applications that we implemented, and this is bringing in several of those integration pieces, and that's the San Juan Water District water map. It's the system map that used to be a map book that San Juan Water used to hand out to their employees, but now it's a digital form. So everything in the system, again, it's a REST service, so anytime that the editors make any changes, it's it's immediately available to the people on the tablets. The map books, as soon as you print them out, they're out of date as soon as somebody starts making any edits on it. So in the system map, we have the distribution system, we have the water treatment plant, we have a land base, including parcels, buildings, and the CIS data, all in one application. So like I mentioned before, if the field crews are out, they have a leak, something like that happens, they can run a trace here right in the web application, identify the customers, export out a CSV of those customers, and send it off to customer service. Or if they have some other third-party auto call system, they can set that up where it automatically notify the people that are part of that network. So you can see all the customers here, about 20 or so selected in the map, and you can keep these outage events basically saved, and then you can keep track of them over time. Okay, so we had so many happen this year, so many happen the next year during this month in this area. So you can start tracking that maintenance history over time and be able to really identify maybe where there's problem areas where you maybe need to swap out certain different parts of the system or different parts of the main line, things like that. And now I'll get into a little bit about the setup. So to do this, we have a CMS UMS group at HDR that helped us create this design guide that was really helpful for me and David. The district, we're trying to get everything set up with the process areas and the data, the roles and responsibilities, how people are going to be editing and using this data in the future, the difference between how we're going to design the distribution horizontal features compared to the vertical features for the water treatment plant. So there's a little bit of a different setup there. I'll say the horizontal features are a lot easier for me just because it's typical GIS stuff. That's what we're used to working with. The vertical features weren't that bad. We just had to create some extra relationship classes. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But we want to make sure in the GIS setup, you have a base schema that you get from Esri for the water distribution network, but you want to add in, maybe some other class-specific attributes and some other things, some other characteristics that you want to capture, and you can easily add any field you want to utility network. They just recommend don't take any away, so you can add as many as you want to it. And so what we did for anything that wasn't spatially located, we created an asset table, and we used that in both the horizontal and vertical assets. So this would be things like your electric control panels that weren't part of the water utility network that we captured as a non-spatial object in the asset table. And this is going to a little bit about where we started with. You see the diagram there at the top right is the sketch that was given to me to draw in the different systems of the water treatment plant. So this is what we started with, and we digitized these boundaries and then brought in the different components or pieces of those different systems. So you have like then sedimentation, the different block zones, things like that are bringing more and more detail. And once we're able to draw these in as GIS features, then the staff in the water treatment plant can just select that one simple block zone and pull in all the different information and all the different components that are part of it. And this made it a lot different from the system they used to use before. They can go back like the traditional way and pull up the sedimentation, the drop-down hierarchy. You can still do that, but if you want to go straight to the asset themselves, you basically can do that with a couple of clicks. Saves you a couple minutes to be able to do that. And there's a lot more details, like there's some more asset details that we wanted to keep, so we created these detail tables that would collect these class-specific attributes. And here's a little bit about the relationship classes and how they're set up. So you see here again the structure of the utility network. There's about 9 feature classes here, and really water device, water junction, water line and probably structure boundary are really the key components. Otherwise, the other things are auxiliary. I mean, you can decide to use them in the future or not, but you can really just get started with about 4 of them, and that will get you going on the utility network pretty fast. And to model these relationships, we did a water device to structure boundary. So that would be like all your valves, pumps that are part of the pump station, go get connected to the pump station. You have the asset table that goes to the devices. So that would go maybe to like a wholesale meter. There might be some sort of radio or something like that that would be connected via relationship class that way. And then there might be some more details that you want to include, and that detail will be connected to that asset table. That's just how we did it. I'm sure, like Scott said, you do it whatever fits your agency, but this is how we did it. And again, like I mentioned, the horizontal assets are pretty simple. There'd only be maybe one level in the hierarchy, maybe two. But the water treatment plant had about, I think we're on 5 now, if I'm not mistaken. And again, that can be up to you on how you want to design it. And so now this is what you see on the map here, all those different flock zones within the sedimentation, thickeners and things like that, belt press system within the solids handling building. You have all that set up and mapped here in the GIS system, which then gets fed right into Cityworks. And so you got to just check and make sure that your assets are mapped here in GIS once they're showing up, and they're going to go straight into Cityworks. And here's a little quick shot at the platform, what it looks like in Cityworks. So again, the map looks exactly the same. And it comes in via REST service, like I mentioned before. And they're using it now and working through some kinks, but I think overall they're very happy with how it's being used now, the performance and everything else. And I'm happy to take any questions anytime. Anybody can contact me after this conference, and happy to talk about it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. We do have some questions for you, and we will send those over to you. So all those questions that came in, be watching for those, Joel, and then you can respond directly to those attendees.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and just do like a 30-second break, and then so get up and stretch, and we'll be right back. Thanks for going with us on this, guys, and sorry for the delay there. Next up, we have Jerry Thompson. And Jerry, if you're there.
I'm here.
Jerry Thompson, hi, is the chief building official just west of our headquarters in West Valley City, Utah. He will explain how West Valley City has used Cityworks to navigate the COVID pandemic and a major earthquake that rocked their community, and we were part of that, all while improving customer experience and safety of staff and residents. Terry, you want to turn on your camera? There you are. Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you, Cindy. Let's see if we can get, there we go. So a little bit of a timeline. West Valley City's been using Cityworks since 2008. We have had the opportunity to fully implement it with our inspections, and we found great success with it. And we found that the applicants, the contractors and so forth have really been receptive to a lot of the things that we've been able to do with it. And we wanted to take the next step and be able to invite the public to have more of a say in what the applications were, and move more towards a digital age. So in 2016, we started development using the public portal and some of the tools that were the early tools that were in Cityworks. We ran into some complications. There were some things that we wanted to do that were beyond what was available at that time. And so in 2018, we brought the Timmons group in to help us with this development. They were able to implement a lot of the features that we wanted and be able to make it more receptive, and gave a nice fresh feel over the in the interface that they had there. Late 2019, we began live testing of it. Note to self, when you're doing some testing and you bring in a small group to do it, make sure you turn the notifications off for everybody else. We ran into a surprise when no matter what the application was, whether it was digital or through the portal or through a paper application that we were then manually putting into Cityworks, all of those notifications went out notifying people we had this brand new portal that they could come use. So we quickly, all of a sudden, it went from a live testing to live use. We actually found a lot of people were receptive to it. We've received lots of compliments on it. And to be honest, we've actually had a few of those people have recommended that we go talk to other jurisdictions locally and ask them to use it as well. They found it a lot more appeasing and easier to use than theirs. In 2020, early 2020, we decided to direct everything to the portal, and we were no longer taking paper applications at that time. And of course, 2020 is anything but boring with everything that we have had going on. Part of our portal, we have several different parts of it, but specifically for building inspections, we have all of the applications are submitted now online through it. They're also through an integration we have use OnBase for our plan reviews. They're able to upload their documents, and it's almost a seamless transition between the documents portions and the other parts of the application and Cityworks portal. Through also this portal, they're able to track the applications. They're able to see what they're doing, see who's reviewed it, who has not. This has actually made it a lot easier on a lot of my staff because they're no longer getting the phone call saying who's the holdup. They're now able to see that right there online, who hasn't reviewed it and who has. We also have implemented a payment system where they're able to pay online through there. They're able to also print the permit and schedule inspections. And we say print the permit, it's more of a download and just have it available. And we don't require them to print it out when the inspector goes on site. If he asks for verification of it, just to make sure he's in the right location and looking at the right information, they can pull it up on their phone, tablet, computer, or whatever. We do allow that. Scheduling of inspections has been very interesting, and we've learned a lot with this. One of the things that we're having to do is now that we're no longer manually entering them and we're able to keep track of them that way, we're relying a lot more on Cityworks. And we're having to double check it a few more times to verify that we're maximizing the total use of time that we have with the inspectors. Of course, then we went like I said, 2020, with it being interesting and all. In March, we were in the early stages of the virus and the warnings that were coming out, and we had a situation where a gentleman came in, asked a few questions, and then left. Happened to be my supervisor was there at the time, and when she saw what happened, she said that could have been done with a phone call or an email, and there's no reason why that interaction had to take place. So immediately after that, she marched down, and on March 16th, we closed our office doors. City Hall still remained open for the general public, but we were only open for appointments only. Since we had a digital presence, we were able to do this. We were able to have people still do their do their applications online, still be able to get the permits. We were still able to do the plan reviews, and for the most part, nothing really changed other than we no longer accepted paper. And any questions that the public had now had to be done by phone call or an email. And if there was a lengthy conversation, we would make appointments at that time. And of course, we still did scheduling of inspections by phone at that time. And as we were still in a transition period with this and trying to learn what we could and could not do. 2 days later, we closed our doors for other reasons. We had an earthquake just outside the city limits in Magna, a magnitude of 5.7. This was pretty substantial for this area. Other people, I know there's some people in California probably think, no big deal. For us, it was a pretty big deal. It was an eye opener and a shaker, so to speak. Initially, we closed everything down so we could come in and inspect the buildings. Each of the buildings with the public buildings for the city had to be verified that they were structurally sound before they could go. We could open them up to the public and also to the city staff. As we experienced aftershocks through this, it was determined that we would just keep the buildings closed for that first day, and then we would open them back up the next after that. We've in the 2 days since that earthquake, we received over 213 aftershocks. The largest of those, they're greater than a magnitude of 3. We had over 26, and these were felt all the way from Provo to the south to Ogden to the north. And so we were, out of an abundance of caution, it was determined to just go with an online presence only. And of course, with the COVID-19 and everything, we just decided that we would just maintain the offices themselves would be closed for the rest of City Hall. One of the major damage areas that we had was a manufactured home, a residential park that we had that was just close to the border of Magna. And in this case here, there wasn't really much damage to the buildings other than they fell off of their foundations. And so they had to all be replaced and restored back into there. And in this particular subdivision, we had over 60 homes that this affected. And I think in the total subdivision, there's probably just over 100. So we had a good substantial amount of them that had to be repaired. A lot of the damage that we saw throughout the city was just minor of nature, but it was substantial enough that we had to report it and repairs would be needed. But thankfully, we did not have to evacuate any buildings or have any others collapse other than these homes that we've described. So when an inspector goes out and does an assessment for this, we usually hand them a stack of papers, a form called an ATC 20. This is a rapid assessment of the damages that have occurred, and basically is on a grading scale of, is it habitable or is it not? Is it still standing? Is it completely gone? And we usually hand these out, but we'd just gone paperless. So we had to figure out a way that we were going to handle this situation. And usually with these forms, the inspectors would go out during the day, they'd fill out the forms. At the end of the day, they'd come back with a large stack. They would then hand that off to staff who would transfer that into spreadsheets of some sort. And then that information was then translated and given to the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, where they could then know where they needed to put their resources the next day or two. So it's kind of a long, drawn out process, a couple of days that can happen with this. So we went digital. We created an online form, and this form would be utilized by the inspector in the field on their phone, and they could quickly fill it out. All the data was then captured and automatically put into a spreadsheet. So we'd already taken out the typing pool, so to speak, and now we had the information that we could give the next day to the Emergency Operations Center. But it wasn't still good enough. We thought there's got to be a better way, a quicker way to respond to this. And of course, within Cityworks, utilizing Respond, we have the ability that the inspector in the field can go in, and thank you very much to Cara and Gabriella in Cityworks in helping put this together. But we now have an ATC 20 form that's dedicated, and a portion of the database is set for this, where the inspector will fill out this form in the field in their tablet or their phone. They'll get a graphical representation of where they're at. It'll be pinned with a color marking of sorts or a different shape mark that will identify the severity of that information. And then all of that is gathered in real time and delivered to the EOC through a dashboard where they can now see the different levels, and they can see where that mapping, and they can see the charts, and we can configure this to whatever they need to see for that day, so they can have a real quick response. They can know we need to get their resources to this area as quick as possible. So we were grateful for that. We haven't had a chance to implement this yet, and praying we'd never have to, but this is there and this is available. And if anybody wants to, it's freely out there for whoever's using Respond, that if you want to put this in there, it's not just for earthquakes, but it can be easily tweaked for tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, or whatever else may be out there that needs to be taken care of. One of the other things, as we moved back and started going back into inspections on a normal basis, and actually in response to the earthquakes, we found out we had a couple new trials that were happening, or new challenges that we had to overcome. One of these was that we had limited access to homes. We would receive a call from a home where they would say they had earthquake damage. We would then, as we get there and we're coming off our vehicle at the curb, somebody was at the door saying, you know, you want to stay away, you don't want to come any closer, we've tested positive. So we had to quickly come up with a way that we could assess these damages and be able to look and see what needed to be done, and if any repairs were needed, or if they could still live in the home or not. So one of the solutions that we had was to do a virtual inspection, where we would link up with the homeowner, the contractor, or somebody that would then, we would do either FaceTime or a Google Duo, and we would have that communication where they could then walk through the building and we could see it on our devices, and we could direct them as to what we needed to see, and we could make a rapid assessment of what needed to be done. We have since implemented this as a program for some of our inspections, some minor in nature, such as water heaters, furnaces, simple things where we have to get inside the building but are not allowed to in these ways. We have this, obviously, and the limitations are posted on our website. And we've put some stipulations on it as to what we can do and can't, and also within those lines we've identified the two programs that are able to use. And of course, both of these are free. One of them is already installed on some devices. The other one is a free download. But we'll work with either of those so that the people don't have to download multiple applications. So we're always looking for solutions. And of course, new problems are always arising with us. So one of the things we have is, how do we know that the person we're talking to is at the location? So we direct them to walk outside and show us the address. Sometimes people don't trust us with just a phone call. They think we're just another salesman. That wants to see what their furnace looks like so they can tell us whether or not they want to sell us a new one or not. So in some of those instances, we've actually had to drive up and park outside of the home just to say, yeah, this is me, I'm the one on the phone. And we're still trying to figure out how to schedule a rapid response such as this. A lot of our scheduling of inspections is a 24-hour notice. But in some of these cases, we actually prefer to have them within an hour's notice. And trying to figure out how to receive that communication, that request, and then convey that onto the inspector has been quite a challenge for us in many ways. But we're excited for the future. We're excited where things are going. Like I said, there's many opportunities, and within Cityworks, we see, especially in Respond, we see where we're able to utilize many of the tools, and they help us move forward, especially as we go into this digital and this new age with all this. So with that, I thank you for the time that I have had to present this. And Cindy, is there anything you have for me?
I think we've got one question here. Great job. Thank you for that. Are virtual inspections handled differently in Cityworks than regular field inspections?
Actually, they're not. They're handled almost essentially the same. The reports and everything go out the same. We've set up the ability within Cityworks that once the inspection is done, an email automatically goes out with those results. So people receive that and that verification. But so there's not much as far as the actual Cityworks and the managing of the data. There's not much difference there, and that was actually a surprise to us. We were grateful for that. That was so easy.
That's awesome. Okay, we're going to move on since we're still kind of short on time here. But I love how you were able to change the process and appear pretty seamlessly of all your changes to your community. So nice job. Okay, up next we have Angel.
Hello, my name is Angel Cisneros. I'm the IT manager at Jurupa Community Services District. And today we're going to be discussing streamlining work order creation in Cityworks and how we decided to take that on. Problem here. One slide back, sorry about that. So Jurupa is comprised of a service area for 2 different cities, the city of Eastvale and the city of Jurupa Valley. We have about 32,000 water connections, about 31,000 sewer connections. Our groundwater is 100%, our water is 100% from groundwater. We also do graffiti abatement, street lights, and we have 14 parks that we maintain. We are fairly new to Cityworks. Our go live date, our go live was last month with Miller Spatial as our implementer. We decided to also integrate GraniteNet for our sewer department, OnBase for our documents, New World, Tyler Technology for customer service, Rock Solid for parks, and water leaks and citizen engagement. So a little bit more about us. So our Parks Department uses Cityworks. Cityworks is district-wide. So our Parks Department, our Parks maintenance guys are using it for mowing, for keeping up on mowing, for any type of playground or equipment repair and inspection. Our sewer department's using it mainly with GraniteNet and doing video and sewer line inspection. Our water operations is comprised of 3 different divisions. So our water distribution, which those guys have been great with Cityworks. They've taken it on and use it. They're probably one of our biggest users. They use Cityworks for work orders. Our water production does a lot of inspections in Cityworks. And then we have our water treatment. So this is a shot of our water treatment facility. This is one of them that we manage. And this is where our challenge came in. The deputy of water operations asked us to do one thing and streamline work order creation, but not just for anybody, well, for everybody, but for our concentrate reduction facility. This facility is one of one. There's nothing else like this in the world. This it is a huge facility. It has a small footprint, but it's 4 levels. 4 levels of equipment. Each floor has something. Each floor has pumps, motors, different items that can go wrong. We have over 2,500 assets in this facility. We had to identify and collect these and create some vertical tables. So let's talk about what we did here. And so we had to also use existing QR codes that were already in the facility. Our solution, we worked with Miller Spatial to come up with using Survey 123, JavaScript, and Respond 2.2. The initial thing was to collect and identify. So right here, a few of the guys that were out there collecting every day. Took us about a month and a half to get all these assets in our GIS with vertical tables and making sure we knew where they're at, identifying them, and also relating the asset tag or the QR code that was with them. This is our vertical tables, and we do want to thank Scott from Park City. We used his schema for this, and he was more than willing to share that with us. It was great, helped us out a lot. So thank you to Scott. We have 33 of these vertical tables. So then we created a view table to pull in the information from those vertical tables. With that, now we can use Survey 123 to actually scan the QR code. Then once the QR code is scanned, we can go to the JavaScript, and the JavaScript will pull up a dynamic URL. From there, it'll pull up Respond. giving us that asset that we scanned. Gives us all the details about the asset, including a picture, total cost of work time, anything we might want to know when we're out there. And then we create a work order. Very simple to do. You just walk right through it, create the work order. And then to finish off, we have a work order. So this is a very simple process, but really hard to get there. A lot of time scanning, a lot of time collecting assets, a lot of time trying to get everything in there. But now that we have it, it's a pretty seamless process and it works really well. I'm going to give you a short little demo here of it actually going through the process. And this is the person selecting it, that they want to do the survey with the scan. So now they're loading the survey. They're going to scan the QR code. Now that they have the QR code scanned, they can bring up the respond and actually see it, check out the details, see what's going on. There's a picture of the actual asset, the cost, the amount of time it would take. And then they're also able to see work history. So they can go back and see other things that were done to this pump, see if there's any comments, see if there was any problems that they might need to be aware of. So they go back and check it. And now they're just gonna create a work order. They're gonna select what they need to do. They also can type in comments to tell people what happened or what their part was. Create the work order and then they save it. And all this was done within like, I think less than a minute and a half. They're able to find it. Trying to find a pump on a 4-level facility where there's many pumps on every floor becomes a little bit difficult spatially. So we're hoping this will help our treatment department find the right asset, create the work order against the right asset, and not mistakenly choose a different pump that's maybe right next to it or maybe on a different level. So thank you. And does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Angel. That was awesome. I don't see any questions coming in. Well, actually, we do. Let's see. Will this work with older versions of Cityworks? Sorry.
It should work with older versions of Cityworks. We're currently on 15.4, moving to 15.5. So.
Okay, great. It's amazing to think there are over 2,500 assets.
Yeah, on 4 levels, quite a bit of assets right over each other.
Pretty amazing. You guys have done some amazing things there in that Jurupa district. Here's one more. Where do the QR codes come from and how do you create them?
The QR codes were actually developed by a legacy legacy work order system that we no longer use. So they were already there before us. So that's why we decided to use what we have and then use that with Cityworks. So they were just, you can order them online. I ordered some more. We are moving forward with QR coding other departments, our production, other wells, pumps, and other facilities. Everybody likes the QR code idea. So.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. We're going to move on quickly to Billy Lang. And Billy is going to talk to us today. Hey, Billy.
Hello. Are we ready to go?
Hang on a minute. I'm going to just turn it to you. So go for it, Billy.
All right. Thank you, Cindy. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to provide a quick overview of ArcGIS Quick Capture and how it integrates with the Cityworks platform. All right. So for those of you unfamiliar, ArcGIS Quick Capture was created specifically for field teams that need to collect data while on the move. This could maybe be done from a moving truck, off-road vehicle, or even from the air in something like a helicopter. Intended uses include aerial surveys, monitoring vegetation encroachment, asset inventories, and the example we're going to take a look at today, emergency management response. has a very minimalistic user interface, and it allows users to capture location, field conditions, and even images, pictures, without interrupting the primary task at hand. So with the integration to Cityworks, users can access data immediately in ArcGIS and push new activities directly to Cityworks while teams are still in the field. This eliminates time spent manually processing field data and reduces human error from inaccurate transcription. We leverage for this integration that we threw together here, we leverage the existing integration between Cityworks CrowdSearch Reporter, which uses our Cityworks Service Request API, our webhooks, and also Python scripts that are available on GitHub. Okay, so let's take a look at one back here. Okay, we gotta get the slides. All right, so there we go. So how does this actually work? So it starts with a user creating a new report in the Quick Capture app. They can add an image, they can add any additional information that's required by how the app was configured for that use case. And then the final step, they can view it, make sure the location is correct, adjust the location if needed, and then quickly click send. In the background, a scheduled task is running, a Python script that has a configuration file associated with it that takes that information, packages it up, and using the Cityworks Service Request API, pushes that request into Cityworks. So a new request is created in Cityworks with all that information. That's one direction, but this is a two-way integration. So in Cityworks, if a user then updates that service request, makes a status change, for example, that can be caught by Cityworks Action Manager, which says, hey, this just happened to this specific request. Let's go ahead and fire off this webhook that's associated to this action. And then using the ArcGIS REST API, that report is then, or that information is, in this case, a status, is updated in that record back in either ArcGIS Enterprise portal or your ArcGIS Online account. All right, so now that we've taken a look at how it works and what it is, let's actually take a look at the integration itself. So if you can provide me access to share my screen. There we go. And all right. So this is the ArcGIS Quick Capture project page. And what we did and what you all can easily do is you can start with creating a new project. And you can start from an existing layer, again, either in your ArcGIS Online or your Enterprise portal account, or start from a template. I chose to start from a template, and you see there's a number of templates already provided. And the nice thing about starting from a template, they give you a number of observation codes and stuff like that already prepackaged and the form already going. So we're going to look at this urban search and rescue template. So that's this guy right here. So if I go ahead and open this up, what you'll see is this is basically the form as it comes in. You can add different groups, and so each one of these boxes is a group, or you can also add buttons. Once you do that, you have a settings and configuration panel here, so you can maybe change the layers that you're referring to, change the map that's being tied to it, add some project details, and set up things like project user input, which is something that we've configured in this example as to capture the name or the email address of the person submitting and using the app. Each one of these buttons can then also be configured for appearance and the data that's connected to it. In this case, we're just using that initial file that was created when we used the template, and it's pre-populated with some attributes that are taking this information right off the device that you're using. And then down here, you'll see the observation type. And the observation type is basically becomes a one-to-one relationship with the service request that you have configured in Cityworks. And then, we're going to pass some comments, the reporter email, and some other additional information. So this is the project explanation page, or how you set up the project. Okay, and here is the app itself. So I'm going to go ahead and run this app on my phone. So I'll click the Urban Search and Rescue workspace. I'll add that project user input as my email address. And once I get that put in, all right. And now I'm logged in. You see that, and that email address is going to get associated with every report that I create. So in this case, we're going to do a quick animal hazard issue. And so you can see that I've had photos turned on, so I can add a photo. And oh, there's our animal hazard, lemur in jail, and say done. And then some additional comments. Bad animal. I'll be able to spell. And quick say done. And now in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little 1 indicating that I have a report left to send on my device. I can see the location there and quickly hit send, and that sends the new report into the layer, the feature layer in your ArcGIS Online or portal again. And then this is where the script is picking it up and passing it over to Cityworks. All right, so now let's take here, now we're in Cityworks. This is the respond application where we have a dashboard set up. And you can see the number of open requests, new reports as a count widget or as in a list here, and also a location on the map. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this dashboard, and we should see that 5 go to 6. And there is the new report that came in. I can view that report either from clicking on this count widget, or I can simply sort here. Here's my new animal hazard. I'll select and open this report up. And it opens my service request page where you can see the image that I attached, the comment that I made, the creator information that got passed. And if I go to my customer calls, that's where the email that the project user input field that was associated with this would get populated. Now, I'm going to go ahead and update the status to open and then save this report. And now that's where the webhook fired, and it should have updated the actual report in. There's my new report right there. And we'll open this table, expand this, and quickly view all of my records. Oops, show high columns, show all. And scroll over, and it will be at the bottom. And there's my new record with the status of open. That's the whole quick capture to Cityworks integration. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you, Cindy.
Can quick capture work in a disconnected environment?
That is a good question. Can quick capture? I believe it can if your hosted services are set up for sync, but that is something I'd need to check. That's an Esri focus question, so I'd need to double check on that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. And then what Cityworks licensing is required for the quick capture integration with Cityworks?
You would need for service request API or a version of the service request API, and then that's for to create the request in Cityworks, and then to push it back, you would need webhooks.
Okay, all right, love it. I like the picture of the lemur.
Thanks.
I do love how the crews are able to see that data update really quick. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, that's important to keep everybody on the same page.
Yep. Okay. we're going to skip the break because we are running late. So Jason, we've got Jason Matthews up next. Let me intro. He is the CEO of DigEplan, a Cityworks partner. And Jason will discuss the challenges the city faced, the benefits achieved, and what was involved in digitizing the plan review processes for the city of Rexburg, Idaho. Jason?
Thank you, Cindy, for the intro. I'm hoping you can hear me fine.
I can hear you great. I just need to give you control here. 1 second. There we go. It's all yours, Jason.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are for the session. Thank you for joining us. So as Cindy said, I'm Jason Matthews, CEO of DigEplan. We're an integrated plan review provider working with Cityworks. And today I've got the pleasure of discussing a recent implementation at the city of Rexburg and some of the challenges that we faced and how it was delivered and some of the benefits that came out of the project. I just want to say thank you to the city, thank you to our implementation partners, TruePoint, and the team at DigEplan in preparing, supporting the materials for this. So for those of you that don't know the city of Rexburg, it's in Madison County, state of Idaho. Population of 35,000. They've been using Cityworks for about 8 years now, and they'd made a decision that they needed to move to an electronic plan review process with their Cityworks system. So let's talk a little bit about the context of that decision. They'd been working electronically for some time in terms of their submissions process, so using the public portal. They'd made their mind up that they were going to make a move to electronic plan review, which then happened to coincide with COVID-19. So I just wanted to say this up front, that they, as the pandemic unraveled and continues to affect us all, that decision they felt was the right decision. We just happened to get caught up in COVID-19. So although I'll walk you through the schedule and the time it took, etc., we believe we could have done this in 1 month and had everybody up and running in 4 weeks. But let's walk through the project. I just thought it was good to share some thoughts around the impacts of COVID at that stage. So just drilling in a little bit to how they were working. Electronic plans were coming in through the public portal, but they were also requesting a set of paper plans, 3 copies, 3 sets, to be submitted to the city as part of the application process. As in most cases, on top of the copies that were being submitted, they were also having to create their own copies internally, which has its own set of costs and time and effort involved in that. And then the plans were then being marked up manually and then rescanned back in, and that process would then follow through to the next cycle. So if you look at a visual of that process, what the effects are in the back office, I think it's clear to see from this overview here that we've got a nice intake process through the public portal. There's a record generation, case generation process that goes on between the portal and the back office. They also had workflows assigned to the various users involved in the plan review processes, but then they had all this paper to manage. So not only the subsequent, the applicant providing 3 copies, but also the copies that they needed to take internally where there are other folks needing to review plans. You've then also got the challenge of, where are these plans? Are they the latest revisions? I think we've all seen the paper-based plan rooms in our experience, and it's very challenging with all those bins and placeholders. It's very easy for things to get mixed up. So there's a lot of manual administration going on there throughout the cycles and throughout the consolidation of markups and scanning, and then the re-uploading back into the back office. So I put this together because I felt that it's important for organizations to understand that this is not a difficult thing to do. Electronic plan review has in the past been seen to be complex, onerous, and requiring, a lot of expertise and time. to deliver, but we're just not in that place anymore with cloud-based integrated electronic plan review. Things have really changed. So we've got quite a small team to deliver a project such as this. So just somebody involved in leading the business system side, in this case, obviously Cityworks, somebody who owned the business requirements, so the building official and their team from a user acceptance perspective. We had some oversight from Cityworks, which was very helpful. Not necessarily required, but it was extremely helpful for all of us to have some referral and reference and oversight there, as this was one of the early implementations with Cityworks. And then we had one from the team of DigEplan, and then from our implementation partners, TruePoint, who project managed and helped supported the training and delivered the training as part of the project team. So what we tend to do with our approach to these implementations is have a look at what's already existing within the Cityworks functionality. In this case, there was already the public portal already set up. As I said, they were taking electronic plans through the public portal. There was a mature back office, so the ability for a document store. And then also the workflow was there for supporting the review processes and the distribution of work to the various people that were involved in plan review. So that starting point allowed us then to play back to the city what the to-be situation looks like versus the as was with the paper that covered up all of the electronic plan review opportunities when you implement a technology such as this. So now you'll see, the plans intake process follows the same flow. The record, the case creation follows the same flow into the back office. The workflow is already there, and all we're doing simply is then adding an electronic plan review process launched from the workflow, which then opens up a world of opportunities and efficiencies for people involved in those processes. So now you end up with an experience where simultaneously people can review the plans and then complete certain activities that typically take place, such as calibrations, measurements, standard comments, checklist items, markups, comparisons and overlays, all those good rich features that we need to do each day to assess compliance for permitting. Off the back of that then, at a certain point, you would then generate a correction report, either at an interim level or at a final consolidated level, apply stamps, corrections required stamps or approved stamps, etc. And then we update the workflow. So now we've eradicated all of the paper-based processes and simply slotted into the existing system of Cityworks from a portal perspective through to the back office, flowing through to the workflow and creating now a fully electronic process. I'll talk a little bit about the benefits once we get towards the end here. So now we've considered what the environment is that we're going into in terms of the setup, what's there already, how do we connect the dots. We're then able to pull out a plan. And you can see here it's a pretty straightforward plan, 4 weeks, start to finish. But in this case, we identified another opportunity, and that was to synchronize the comments between the plan review and the back office to create checklists against the workflow. So that took a little bit of time for us to work out how we do that. And on top of that, we then got hit by COVID. So that really created some gaps in the schedule where we just had to regroup, work out, give the city some space to get the teams working remotely. We were already a remote team, so that really didn't have a great deal of impact, but there was some elapsed time there And working as a team, we found a way to ensure that we could synchronize between the plan review tool and the comments, and the checklists in the back office of Cityworks. So then what happens is in this opportunity is you can close out in a subsequent cycle, either in the back office in this view in Cityworks, or you can close out graphically in DigEplan, and the two will synchronize through the cycles. So it was a real win for the city to implement this additional item that we'd identified in the requirements. From a configuration perspective, and if we move into actually getting this thing stood up, it's pretty straightforward. No customization, no coding required. Simple refinement to the workflow, pretty basic stuff. And then the setup, departments, intelligence stamps, and the correction reports in the configuration side. So that elapsed time that you saw on the project plan is really very straightforward. From moving to the configuration side into training support, so getting UAT done, so getting the users accepting the system, getting the system sign off, and then moving into training. We had some minor tweaks to support the Rexburg configuration, such as the addition of the sync that I've just talked about there, but it was mainly out of the box. And from system sign off, pushing, I think 2 to 3 groups through, we went live in around 2 weeks. Again, a pretty straightforward process and onboarding for the users and administrators of the system. So from a project delivery standpoint, what did we learn? We learned that it's very good to show the end state first. Because DigEplan is cloud-based, it's out of the box for Cityworks. We can show that end state without doing anything at all. And that helps people shape the thinking around their processes, allows them to get their, for example, their submittal standards built out. If there are any changes to business practice, they can be obviously laid out, and training can happen. But we also, from a remote perspective, we had an issue-free delivery and training, and I think the city of Rexburg would attest to that, with a go live from kickoff as little as 4 weeks, which was a statement that was made kind of partly through the project. When COVID hit, we could have done this sooner and got this done had we known it would be going in so quickly. From Rexburg perspective, it was really straightforward. They had their own processes defined. They'd already made their investments in Cityworks. They didn't need other systems and processes. They just wanted this to work with what was there with some minor tweaks. I think the efficiencies delivered with the integration into Cityworks means that there's no redundant data, there's no manual data entry. The data flows from the public portal through to plan review, through the back office, and back out again. And this all culminates in a lower operating cost, lower IT requirements to manage the system side. But ultimately, what were the benefits? Switching from paper-based plan review to electronic ultimately saves significant time. I think we all know the difference between working with big sheets of A0 paper versus on an electronic screen. Lots of copying goes away, lots of manual data entry into managing versions and bins, etc. What also comes with this is the audit trail. Everything that happens is recorded. Every single markup entity, its date, time, sheet, version, case, everything is traceable through the electronic plan review process. But really another great thing here was business continuity, touchless permitting counter application process, remote working instantly for all the people involved in electronic plan review, and a very happy set of commercial customers who have had a great experience through the city moving to a fully electronic process. So finally, where are we going next? What's next? We're going to be pushing the submission standards checking into the public portal. And what that does is it helps the preparation of the information for the city. It helps the commercial customers, the applicants, ensure that their data is good before it ends up in the back office and potentially sits there for 10 days before somebody realizes there's a problem. So we're trying to ensure standards are good on the way in, and then permitting, plans can be reviewed faster, permits can be issued faster, construction can get done, revenues can be generated. And we've got some really interesting things going on around project coordination, where you've got slightly larger projects and you want to give your commercial customers access to an overview of all the things that are going on in their projects. So it's more of a multi-project coordination capability. And next year, looking into native app for other use cases for plan review in the field. On that note, we have a handout. The Rexburg case study is available, I think, in the handouts link on the right-hand side. Thank you very much for listening. If there's any questions, I'll pause there.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. And I'm glad that you mentioned that handout. So feel free to go ahead and download that and print it or save it to your computer. We do have one question here. Do we need to change our workflows to work with DigEplan?
Not at all, no. If, assuming you have a paper-based plan review workflow set up, there are some minor tweaks, but no, we just slot straight into the Cityworks workflow.
Pretty seamless, that's great. So it's nice to see the ease and the benefits of digitizing and helping save the time and no redundancy. So anyway, thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for attending all the way from England. Great to have
Thank
you
you,
here.
Cindy.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Dan Perling. Dan is a subject matter expert with Cityworks, and he will be talking to us today about new functionality within our public access application and providing a look at the future roadmap. Dan, all yours.
All right, thank you, Cindy. So I was going to kind of frame the conversation here, but just in the interest of time, I think I'll maybe echo what Rob and Jerry had said, where a line like this could maybe be typical of people wanting to go in and apply for a building permit or renew a business license, right? And the motivation behind a public-facing application is a little bit more convenient of an experience. On your own device, your own schedule, you can go in and apply for and interact with these permits. Now, over the past few releases, a big focus of ours within the public access application development has been increasing the engagement that an end user can have both before and after they've actually submitted an application. So at earlier releases, the intake process was the kind of the meat of public access, but we realized that we want to stay in touch with the permit process both before and after that intake. So I'm going to jump ahead and talk to a video here. Key enter quick to get that going. And I just want to highlight some of these pieces of functionality that we've added. One way we want end users to stay engaged is by allowing them some edit capabilities after they've created a case. So here, for instance, what we've added at our upcoming release is the ability to edit the application name. So if we want to change this application from Spring Hill Mall to Spring Hill Shopping Center, we can do that, much like our people and case data at our Public Access 5.0 release. Another way we want the public to stay engaged is to expand on our inspection scheduling capabilities. So now on the same permit, as I go to schedule an inspection, we've added the ability for the end user to submit comments and instructions. And I think a good example of this is maybe for an electrical inspection, we don't want the inspector to be stuck outside. So if we need to provide a building code, we can provide them a building code right here in the comments. and submit that. And once we go ahead and schedule the inspection, we'll actually be able to increase that user to internal staff communication. And we'll take a look here as we jump into the Cityworks core site that the inspector in real time can go ahead and access the information just provided by that public user by going to the task in the workflow and hitting the task comments section. They can see the code to get into the building. They're not locked out. They get in, complete their inspection, and really make the process a bit more efficient. Now, once that inspection is completed, we kind of also realize that it's great for the public user to be able to see what result an inspection had, right? If we navigate forward here and we see that that electrical inspection failed, that's part of the puzzle, but it's not the whole thing. It's helpful for the end user to maybe know why the inspection failed, right? So as we jump in here, we can see now at the next release of public access that we have exposed checklists. So I can go ahead, and I'm going to pause this quick so I don't get too far ahead. We can see why that inspection failed, make the corrections really quickly in real time without needing that full inspection report, and just kind of, again, keep moving forward while continuing to add engagement opportunities for those public users. Now, here we see a typical login application page for those of us who are familiar with public access. We can see our fields collected for the credentials and contact information, but we also wanted to allow the citizen to stay engaged even before they create any permits. We want them to be able to specify what they want to do within the public access site. So here, let me see if I can get this video to play again. Whoops, I'll hop back quick. And I'll jump ahead, but as we noticed, hopefully, quickly on that paused screen, well, we've added the ability to specify what role we want a user to join. So you can select maybe that I want to apply for building permits or for business licenses, and then once you actually complete the application process, you'll be automatically placed into that appropriate security role, and your public access experience will be tailored accordingly. If I want to apply for business licenses, I'll only see business license templates. And if I want to apply for building permits and have selected that role, I'll only see those building permits that I can create. So again, kind of increasing engagement opportunities for those public users, those contractors, business owners, whoever it may be. And each one of those enhancements came from the Cityworks community. They came from you. We take your feedback really seriously. We appreciate it, and we need it to continue to make the software better. And those are all ready to go at the next release, which is really, really soon. Really soon. But we also want to look a little bit ahead, right? What do we want to do in the future? We want to improve our contractor functionality. We want to allow contractors to add subcontractors to cases. When contractors are applying for cases, we want them to have kind of a use my information button, where instead of needing to find themselves in a list of existing contractors, they can click one button, have themselves added to the case, and just keep it moving. We also want multiple employees per contracting. So if Cindy and I both work for Cityworks Contracting, instead of me being the only one that can see those cases in public access, we want to be able to tag Cindy so she can see all those contracting cases as well. We're also looking at some more flexibility here. If I click ahead quick. Just have one more thing I want to show. So we want to allow some flexibility when people are creating child cases within public access. So instead of automatically creating a child case of the same type as we do in current releases, we want to navigate the user back to the application selection screen where they can pick the template that they want to create, just giving them some more flexibility. We're looking at all these things and we really appreciate your feedback. I know that was a little bit of a sprint, but please feel free to reach out to me and I can kind of take a deeper dive into some of those as everyone's interested. But I can take some questions too. I think I have a couple more slides, but we can just jump through those.
If you want to finish up, that's fine.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So we also want to just look at increasing our task map layer interaction, allowing inspections to be scheduled if they have a task map layer built against them for the assign to function. We want to allow some flexibility when it comes to the geocode requirement, especially as this pertains to new development, where if you need a matching address, but that address doesn't exist and you kind of get stuck right now, we want to look at some ways to allow for that capability. And we also want to prevent cases being created against assets that have been flagged, whether that's for code enforcement violations or whatever the flag may be, preventing those cases from being created until those violations are kind of completed. And so that's a quick 50,000 foot look at the roadmap, but we're really excited about the next release, and we think everybody will benefit once they get their hands on it.
That's awesome. We did have a couple of questions, Dan, come in. What version of public access are you showing?
So that was our latest and greatest. It hasn't quite been released yet, but really soon. I don't know if we can get too much into specifics. Maybe Becky will get it a little bit more, but really, really soon that'll be available.
Okay, great. And then has the security of checklist been improved so that you can control who can edit the checklist, specifically not able to delete items?
Yeah, so that, if I'm understanding correctly, might be a little bit more on the core site. And we can kind of, if we want to reach out after the fact and break some of that down, we can, but there is a new capability within public access where we do have some security controls. But if you're looking for the core site, let's talk about that a little bit more offline.
Okay, great. We'll send you over the questions if we get any more.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thanks for your help. There's exciting things coming. The future.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy.
Really good, thanks. Next up, we've got Becky Tomaszewski, and she's VP of Vision and Product Engineering at Cityworks here. Many of you know her. Excuse me. The product and development teams have been working hard over the past several months with new features and functions in the latest release. And up next, Becky will give us an overview of Cityworks 15.6 and the updated functionality. Becky?
Great, thank you, Cindy. And thank you everybody for joining in and sticking around until the very end. I do have some information to share with you guys. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start to dive in here and start with, let me see here. There we go, you guys already know who I am. So I'm gonna proceed past these and actually start to look at our roadmap here. So this is an updated roadmap based off of what is coming soon for release and what we have planned out for the foreseeable future. And so as Dan mentioned, the version that he was showing today for public access and some of the upcoming releases are coming very, very, very soon. I don't know how much more I can say beyond that, but just be prepared. Everything is coming along great. And those of you who are using our native apps, while this was going on, you may have noticed that a email probably hit your inbox announcing a new release there as well. So make sure to check that out. There's some fixes there that I know people have been looking for, as well as some new enhancements to help with usability of the software. And so in terms of what you're going to see coming soon in our next upcoming release, I wanted to hit on a few highlights of those in the next couple of slides. So I'm not going to dive into a whole bunch of detail there. There's a few items that I just think are very relevant and kind of high priorities for everybody to be checking out and paying some attention to. I also want to point out, after this webinar, and I think going into in the next couple of weeks, and then again in October, we'll be having some follow-up webinars for our clients to be going through and actually diving into the new functionality that's coming out in the upcoming release. At that point, we'll have already hit the streets. You guys will have access to it, and we'll be having the SMEs actually walking through some of that new functionality and getting into some of the details for you. And because there is so much new content, we are going to break it apart into 2 separate webinars so that we don't keep you guys on an all-day webinar just going over all the great new Cityworks stuff. And so hopefully you'll have some time to dive into what's going into AMS as well as PLL and looking at some of the functionality around the native apps and some of the other HTML5 apps that we've been working on and really looking to provide more value for all of our clients. So while I have everybody on the line, I just want to kind of go through what we're looking at beyond this upcoming release that we have planned. And that's really diving into some bigger initiatives here, really looking to provide you guys with more technology and more tools to really help you operate more efficiently and more strategically and have Cityworks be a key part of that within your organizations and your plans. So you'll see here a few things. There are several that I'm really excited about. One, support and integration with ArcGIS Urban from Esri. And so some of that functionality that Dan was showing is a natural tie-in from public access to really start to dive into how we can support that process for planning, development, and how that can be a tool set within our organizations, tying into the Cityworks technology that they already have in place. And then diving into some more tool sets here to actually start to help you guys with the management of projects and budgets and contracts. That functionality could really use a new update and some new design and look to it, really to make things more functional and more valuable again for you. And then as we start to look beyond that, we're talking about 3D and getting into that functionality to really start expand what we've already been working on that you've seen a few times if you tied into the webinar that we did with Esri with the ArcGIS Indoors team and Trimble to look at how Cityworks is integrated and supporting that functionality. We are working to take it one step further and move beyond 2D, not just for indoors, but also just to support generally that vertical asset visualization, some arc scenes, and getting into some of that technology that our clients are really already investing in and being able to support the growth within your organizations. And so with that, I'm actually going to jump in. I know you guys have been very patient. You've stayed on the line for a while here. We're over time, so I'm going to be pretty concise. So as we go through here, you can see this is just some screenshots of what we're doing with indoors. We do have integration through the native apps and through the web app. And so this basically, for those sites who are already using Cityworks for SSO, you're able to actually go ahead and take that and extend it across what you're doing to really pull indoors in as part of your Cityworks solution for vertical asset management and getting into those facilities. And so if you're in indoors, you'll see here, I've got some symbology that's shown here on the indoors screenshots, and that's actually Cityworks symbology. So carrying through that same symbology that users are accustomed to and familiar with when they're in Cityworks, having that exposed in indoors to have that continuity for everybody while they're out in the field. And essentially indoors is working as an inbox for them. So the indoors app allows them to see where those Cityworks assignments are taking place. Using the indoors technology for routing, they can route to those locations, which is especially beneficial when you're dealing with some of these larger campuses or even airports and getting into some of those really distributed assets and buildings. And then from there, there's the ability to open up your Cityworks activities and assignments, view some details, but also create new activities. And during that process, it's launching you into Cityworks, already using your authentication and your login information that was already provided to indoors to really make it a seamless handoff. And so from there, you're able to go ahead and get into the processing, doing your regular work activities, getting into the meat of equipment, labor, material assignments, and some of those other new fields that we've actually been working to provide across the native apps to allow more tactical reporting and roll-up activities that are taking place. And this is actually just an example of a really cool project that's already underway. Some of our clients, City of Raleigh, North Carolina, they're already moving ahead with indoors and Cityworks. And this is an example that they provided us of their treatment plans, already underway in indoors and how they're looking to bring that information in and start to represent it, and then applying Cityworks to get into the asset management and operations of these assets. And then along those same lines, as we're looking at some of this functionality with vertical assets, and even just in general for those field users, being able to quickly identify that asset that you're working with, whether it's in the plant or the field, and being able to quickly bring up information about it, create new activities. We know sometimes some of those IDs that are associated with those assets aren't always available off the top of your head. Likewise, it's not always something depending on the number of assets that you're dealing with to quickly pull up on the map. So we also want to be able to provide barcode functionality. And this is now available in both, well, it will be available, I should say, coming soon in both Respond and the native apps. And so from here, organizations and users can go through, click on that native device camera, and that's just a little icon that we now have exposed there, scan a barcode, and from there, it pulls up all the asset information. You can see the previous work history, any current activities are assigned, attributes, and you can also go ahead and use that once that asset's there, it's selected, and you can start creating new activities against it. So if you're in a plant and you're just walking up to a pump, you can go ahead and scan that information out in the field, scan a hydrant, and be able to immediately go ahead and start that whole process to view, when's the last time that somebody was out here and was actually doing work against this asset? I need to create a new activity and just be able to go ahead and do it on the fly. And then asset curves. Those are also coming very soon in operational insights. And this is really allowing organizations to start to visualize based off of real-time data. This isn't, this isn't modeling that's taking place. We're allowing you to go ahead and actually pull that information in from your GIS that's going through and creating your risk strategy. So your probability of failure, consequence of failure, and business risk. Likewise, pulling in information from the maintenance strategies that you have established for your infrastructure, and then also looking at the GIS data and using that information together to see actually what that expected useful life is for your assets. And this is allowing you to actually take in, real account data. So when we're talking about this in the maintenance strategy, being able to identify how different activities over time have modified how this useful life performs or behaves and is represented here. Which activities move the dial, which activities can be modified, and maybe some of those attributes that can be enhanced based off of activities going forward in the future in terms of the condition of the infrastructure as well. So this is something that you can start to dive into more. This is something that will be covered in the upcoming webinar as well. Denora is the one who's overseeing this. Many of you are already familiar with her if you've been looking at operational insights or just around Cityworks for a while in general. And so she'll be covering this in more detail and is also available if there's any in-depth questions. And then dashboards. So with the dashboards, we've been working for a while here to go ahead and actually start providing more tools to make them more customizable. Dashboards are something that we really are striving to provide to make them more flexible and really meet the needs for reporting and visualization based off of each organization and then each group. And so from here, I just want to be able to go through and show that I can come in now to dashboards, and I'm actually able to go ahead and start to modify what the look and feel is here. The color scheme, background colors, panel colors, font colors, all of this is customizable. So I can have more pronounced widgets for some of these items here than I do maybe the other ones, just based off of if this is something that's a red flag or a high priority that I really want to pull attention to visually, I'm able to go ahead and make that pronouncement. From here, I'm actually going to go ahead and make it very pronounced and make sure it's very eye-catching in terms of some of the colors that are going to be displayed here to really pull out that widget and that text here. So it's something that stands out against the other information that's being displayed here in the dashboard. And so these are the kind of tools that we want to provide to really make it more flexible, really make these dashboards yours and allow organizations the ability to design these, and it can be on a user basis, group basis, or across the organization as well. And so that's really all I was planning on diving in and sharing here today. But again, we will be following up with more webinars specifically tied to the upcoming release, following the actual release. And from there, we'll be able to dive into more details. And so make sure to stay tuned for those registration emails as they're coming out and to be sure to join. We look forward to having you guys again.
Thanks, Becky.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing that and getting us caught up. All right, so I do have I'm going to ask one question here.
Okay.
Do you have the ability to create a work order with a spreadsheet or import a CSV? I think I'm getting that right.
So actually with Cityworks, I think in Office it's called Table Editor, and then with Cityworks for Excel, with either one of those, you can actually create a work order directly from within that UI. So I could be in Cityworks for Excel and I could create a work order there for an asset or an object. So if it's a listing of assets maybe that are in a plant or a pump station, I can create a work order from there. And again, that's available through, I believe it's a table editor in Cityworks Office and then Cityworks for Excel also.
Awesome. That's great. So I think we're gonna go ahead and end there. Thank you for
Thank you, everyone.
Those updates and the upcoming things. I think people are excited about that. A few notes. I just have to thank everybody that participated today. It was a great summit, and I hope that the information provided here has helped inspire you and has given you maybe the thoughts to add some things to what you're already doing with your organization. And also, I want to do a shout out to Chris Mountier. He's been kind of the artist in the background here that has been, oh, my camera's off. Sorry, guys. It was on. I don't know how I turned it off. But I want to give a shout out to Chris Mountier. He's one of our testers, quality assurance guys over in the developers team, and he outed himself one day with doing the Cityworks SAM illustration and shared that with us. So we thought it would be fun to have him do these illustrations along with our presenters. So hope that you've enjoyed today, and keep an eye out for an email in the next week or so that will contain the link to our video recording. You can share this out amongst your organizations. And thank you again for joining us. And with that, we'll let you have your day back. Stay safe and well until next time.